Aloha and shalom. I finally was able to get it together to do this activation. Whew! I was thinking we weren't going to get to do it this time, you guys. That was a close call. So the message does apply for the whole week, and we're at the time of the final quarter moon, so it's the fourth leg of the cycle. Last week we had the full moon, we had an eclipse, and now at this part of the cycle we're wrapping things up. So last week we had the fullness of the picture was revealed to us, and now we are just wrapping it up, integrating, closing up this cycle, and preparing for the new moon next week. So this is what I like to call the in-between activation, or the in-between week, because it's where we're ending one cycle and preparing to begin another. For those of you who are returning to the activation portal, welcome back. And for those of you who are experiencing it for the first time, welcome to the portal. Feel free to share this video while it's live with your family, your friends, or your favorite groups on Facebook. Get them in the portal. It doesn't need to be live. You can always share the recording after if you want to check it out for yourself first. And for those who are not on Facebook, the recording does always get loaded to YouTube and Instagram, Rebecca Magic. And so right now I'm just shuffling the cards, and while I'm doing that, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. I'm tuning in from Sedona, Arizona, as usual. And while I'm shuffling the cards, remember, each card represents a different aspect of the mind. So it's like we're waking up the different parts of the mind as we shuffle them. Each card also represents a different piece of archetypal wisdom. So we're also collecting those pearls of wisdom when we shuffle. We're waking them up, touching them, activating them, saying hello. The energy feels different tonight. Feels like everybody has shape-shifted quite dramatically this past week. What do you think? And then I'm going to take out my Hebrew cards, and I'm going to do the same. For those of you who are seeing them for the first time, the Hebrew letters work the same way as tarot cards. They each hold a particular key. They each resonate with a particular virtue and a particular piece of archetypal wisdom. They also each represent a different aspect of us, the self, individual and collective. So let's take those out and say hello. They look like this. And remember, it's flipped because we're on a camera, okay? So cool to see you all tuning in around the world. So just waking them up, saying hello. Giving thanks in advance to the archetypes, the many faces of the one, for this map they're about to put together for us, that we're about to put together for us, because we all are one. There's only one here. So thank you in advance for this message that's about to come through. Starting with the tarot deck. What is the most challenging aspect for us right now that we need to prioritize? Remembering that this challenge is also the gift. The challenge and the gift are one. As we transmute the challenge, it becomes the gift. So which one is the main focus right now at this final part of this month's cycle? What's something we have to really let go of, stop doing? Or maybe we've already become conscious of this, and it's going to give it that extra reinforcement that we need, that extra awareness upon this subject that we need to be able to really release whatever this is now. And then, as usual with the Hebrew deck, we'll pull an ally for the week. I knew there was one there. You gotta be free to let the energy flow through you. So who's the ally of the week? I feel it's this one, whatever one this one is. Okay. Thank you again in advance for the message about to come through. Thank you. We won. We won. Nine of Swords. I feel this. I feel this. So check it out. Swords is the suit of challenges. A lot of people will tell you that swords have to do with the material realm, the earth element. It's my belief that it actually is primarily first associated with, one moment, I'm getting gotta delete that call there. Always get interrupted when we're doing the activation. Always interesting to see who comes through. It's usually the same one or two people. So, sorry, reverse that. Most modern tarot guides or books will tell you that the swords is the air element, the mind. I actually believe it's not. I believe it's the material, primarily. I believe it's the material world. I believe it's the earth element. I talk all about this in my book, Royal Path 2, which gets into the elemental suits and the minor arcanum. So if you want to know more, just ask me about my book or check out my videos on YouTube. I talk about these manipulations. I believe that the primary elemental association to swords is earth. But going deeper, I believe that each suit has a primary elemental association, yet it is associated with all of the elemental realms. Each one has all of the elements within it because they're all one. They just, depending on what card you pull, what suit you pull, it will determine what order you should consider those elemental realms in regard to the subject that's within the card. Okay, so that's just a little preview of what's in my book. So we're gonna look at it as the suit of challenges. Beyond an element, it's the suit of challenges. If you wanna know more though, I really do recommend asking me why. I'm just gonna tell you guys because I feel it's so important. I keep getting the push to tell you, so I'm just gonna go for it. Why should swords be first associated with the earth element in the material world? Because it's challenges. And if we primarily first associate swords, challenges with the earth element or the material world, right off the bat, we can acknowledge it as impermanent and temporary. So we can relax, even though we're getting a very challenging card, because look at it, right? Oftentimes people see the swords card and just like the devil card, they go, oh, that looks really scary. But when you remember that it's the material world first, you can kind of relieve some of that pressure right away and go, oh, okay, so it's temporary. So first I can acknowledge the temporary nature of the challenge. Wow, now I can rest to be receptive enough to go deeper with the message. Then I can consider this archetype or this message in the other elemental realms, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, how is it affecting me? But first I acknowledge that it's temporary because it's material. That's a little bit about why swords should actually be primarily associated with the earth element. Again, if you want to know more, please ask me about my book. Okay, so nines are endings. It's an ending of a challenge. This card is all about waking up from the nightmare. It could be literally, like you're losing sleep at night or you're anxious about whatever the thing is. Now remember, this is a collective reading, but it's also for the individual. So in order to heal the collective, you have to find how this is manifesting for you personally in your life. So what is the thing for you that has been causing you anxiety? So first, make it personal, to then understand that the energy behind it is absolutely collective and it's not personal. But first, you do have to find how it's manifesting in your personal world. So what has been keeping you up at night? What has been bothering you? What has been causing you anxiety? You're just beginning to realize whatever this thing is. And if you're in denial, if you're saying, I don't know what it is, look a little deeper. You do know. You do know. It's about cutting out that denial, accepting what that thing is that bothers you the most. What is it? Because it's time to fully accept that thing that you know is true, that you know is truly bothering you. And you need to once and for all accept it so that you can move on. Nines are endings, but tens are endings and new beginnings. And the 10 of swords looks like a man lying face down with 10 swords in his back. Again, not to be feared. It looks like a very dark image, but what that image represents is killing that program once and for all, that old you that was run by that fear, that was overwhelmed and controlled by that fear or that anxiety from whatever situation was underlying it. It's that part of yourself that you want to kill. It's that part of yourself that you got to be done with, that part of yourself that allows that thing to persist, that allows that thing to continue to feed you fear and anxiety, stress. That's who that man is, face down dead in the 10 of Swords. So before we get to that 10, we got to actually wake up from the nightmare. The next step is removing the hands from our eyes, right? It's like oh my God, this nightmare, oh my gosh. Well, at least we're awake from it. We're awake to it, I should say. We're aware of what the nightmare is, we have awoken. But now we have to remove our hands from our eyes and keep moving. Got to keep going. We can't just sit there in victim mode and just suffering and suffering and suffering. So check it out. When he removes his hands from his eyes, what does he see? He sees his blanket. And what do blankets represent? That cover, that blanket represents security, comfort. And if you look closely at the blanket, what's on this blanket is the rose and the different zodiac symbols. The rose is the symbol of rebirth, eternal life. And the zodiac symbols are showing the divine order of the universe, the divine order of nature and the cosmos, of all things. So the message there is when you remove your hands from your eyes and you can get over it already and rise above to the bigger picture of the divine order and perfection of all things and the truth of your immortal nature, as represented by the rose, then you could actually move on. No matter what it is you just realized is so bad in your life, when you rise to that place in your consciousness and your awareness that reminds you of who you are and why you're here, that you're an eternal being, a part of divine perfect order, nothing outside of that order, then you can actually move ahead. Then no doubt you'll find what you need, the tools that you need, because they're all there in that space when you rise to it, when you go within to it. All the tools are there that you're going to need to kill that old part of yourself that was run by that fear. Okay, so you have to want it. You have to be able to let go of that victimization consciousness. You have to really come back to that space, breathe, remember that there's nothing outside of that order, and see yourself as a wounded child. Look how I'm trying to cling to this thing. Look how I'm trying to cling to the pain, trying to make excuses for it. Look how my ego is trying to keep that part of myself alive so that it could feed off of it. The fear and the anxiety could feed off of it. Look how I'm doing that. And then have compassion for that and say, I see. I get it. It's a part of the process. That's why there's a tarot card for it, where you come to this place again and again. It's a natural part of our process. Don't hate yourself for it. You're just going to fall in the same trap then. Instead, notice that you're doing that. Maybe laugh at it even. Maybe go, oh, wow, look how badly I want to cling to that. And still do whatever it takes to come back to that place that knows this is all a part of the plan. When you can come to that place of trust, then you can come to a place of surrender. And you can and you will move forward from there. Okay, so if this is the challenge right now, it's saying, look, you want to move on to the new moon. The best way that you can prepare this week for that new beginning in order to maximize your potential for that new beginning to come, you got to really accept whatever that thing is that's been bothering you. And you got to make a plan to get through it, to get beyond it. The perfect card for right before the new moon. We're coming to an ending. We're at the 9. Let's get to that 10 so we can begin again. And the thing we have to let go of. Okay, this is the 6 of Pentacles. This card represents balance within to manifest balance without, to put it in short, okay? And why would this represent something we need to leave behind? What I'm seeing is that we're doing this all wrong. We're thinking that balance means one thing because we're forgetting what it actually means. We have perverted our definition of balance, and that's what we're projecting outwardly into our world, in our relationship and in our lives all around. We need to redefine balance. Remember, it starts within, because what we've been doing is forgetting that, and we've been trying to balance things from an egoic perspective, trying to balance things out there, trying to take karma into our own hands, for example. So connecting these two cards, it could look like this. Whatever's been giving you anxiety, let's say it's a relationship, because that's where most of our anxiety comes from, because let's be real, everything is one, so everything's a relationship with self. So let's say a relationship with a boss, a coworker, or your lover, or a family member or friend is causing you anxiety. You're thinking, well, I gotta balance this by being rude back. I gotta balance this by getting even. That's called revenge. That's called being vengeful. That's not justice. And justice is a keyword for this card. Look at the scales. Balance, justice. So we've been so caught up in the anxiety and the fear and the stress around whatever situation it is for you individually, that we've been seeing from a skewed lens, from a perverted lens, and we've come out of balance. Time to get back to the center. What is at the center? The forces of polarity. How are you embodying them? Check yourself, check yourself, check yourself, because that's all there is. Come back to yourself. And it's very simple. It could be like, well, what do you mean? How do I just come back into balance? It's very simple. And I'll put it to you like this. It's so simple. It's a way that the ego tricks us. You think you've done it before, but it takes constant effort every moment. Every moment. And so the moment we forget, we fall out of balance. And what's more is, the higher the anxiety or fear in the situation, the more moments consecutively we're forgetting. And it only takes a small chunk of time to throw us off just a bit so that it rocks our entire reality. Because remember, it doesn't matter if you're one step off balance or 15 or 100, you're off balance. You're either balanced or you're not. And again, it takes effort every moment. So if you're all caught up in this storm of emotions, that's not balance. It just means return to your process. Every moment though, staying on track. How do I do this? You gotta work on wanting to move ahead, letting go of that part of yourself. First of all, accepting this challenge, right? And turning it into the gift. Accepting the anxiety in your life, looking at what's causing it and dealing with it once and for all. Then you can come back to yourself. Then you take your power back. It really just means checking back in with yourself. It's so simple. Because look, if you're so caught up in the nightmare of your life and the victimization, you can't possibly, with that same awareness in that same moment that you're doing that, be focusing on defining from a healthy perspective your masculine and feminine. What happens when you're caught in the drama and the trauma is you're subconsciously redefining in a negative way who you are, what the world is. We can't help that. When we're holding a negative frequency, we start shifting our beliefs on a subconscious level about what the world is, about who we are, because we're judging things, and all things are made up of the forces of polarity. The whole world is made up of those forces. You are made up of those forces. So when you're caught up in this storm of emotion, and you're in judgment, you're in anger, you're frustrated, maybe you're dishonest, maybe you're impatient, it brings on a frequency of vice, which is the opposite of virtue. Death, which is the opposite of life. Curse, which is the opposite of blessing. Aging and suffering and disease and decay. Instead of cellular regeneration and immortality. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can't possibly be maintaining that balance from a healthy perspective if you're giving up your power, giving away your energy, caught in a storm of vice and negativity. All it takes is remembering, staying present, coming back to this moment and tuning back in. Remembering, okay, I'm so going from this to this. I'm so upset. This person, this, that, this, blah, 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 to this. Oh yeah, I remember it's all me. Right. Okay, let me go back to the truth. Let me come back to the bigger picture. You see, because you've gotten so caught up in the other way all these days, being caught up in that frequency of vice, it's like your muscles, we're starting to reshape, if that makes sense. Even physically, literally your actual physical muscles start to bend and mold according to that frequency that you've been holding in the negativity. So you got to really rope it back in and consistently, with all of your will, redirect that energy back to the truth, back to the bigger picture. Instead of judging one person or even judging yourself, going, it's all one. So when I judge me, I judge everyone. When I judge me, I'm judging that little girl next door, or I'm judging, the person I love the most in the world. You got to see it like that, no separation. It's like, okay, so I'm going to pull myself out of that darkness. I'm going to remember the bigger picture. This is how we come back into balance. Remember, when you're in that negativity, when you're caught up by the nightmare and the victimization, you can't see the world clearly. So you can't see yourself clearly, because the way you see one thing is the way you see everything. The way you see yourself is the way you see the world. So for example, when you're judging a man in your life, you're judging the masculine in all things, including within yourself. When you're negatively judging a woman in your life, same thing for the feminine, which is a part of you as well. Whatever you're holding bad feelings for, even if it's just yourself, especially if it's just yourself, remember that you're holding that negativity for all of life. So you could either be in that space or you could be in a space of true balance. You can't be in both at the same time. So it just takes coming back to the remembrance of what really is at the center of balance. It's the polarities in harmony. Remember what those polarities really are, what those forces really are. Remember, you cannot possibly be embodying them in their highest light and in their most harmonious energy when you're caught up in the victimization. So it's time to cut this out, our perverted definition of balance, trying to maintain karma for everybody, decide what should happen to who, playing that role. No, everything's already in perfect order, don't forget. We don't need to micromanage God's job. It's already perfect. Everything in divine order, set for eternal life, okay? And we're gonna go for the ally of the week. I'm pretty sure this was our ally last week, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure it was. This is the Hebrew letter Lamed. And it's the center letter in the whole alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet. And it's the highest one. It's taller than all the rest. The Lamed represents the heart, right? It's at the center of the alphabet. And it's the tallest one. It leads the way. Lamed, lighthouse, leading the way. The Lamed is also the teacher, the one who leads the way. It's the teacher that is the heart, the teacher that is the sacrificial heart. So what do we need to give up in order to follow the heart's path? So if this is our ally of the week, it's just saying, remember your heart. What would your heart tell you to do? Remember, the Lamed is within you. It's at your center, just like we said. What is at the very center is that true balance. So how do we do it? How do we come back to balance? Look within. Go to your heart. Go to the center. All that you need to know is in there. All the tools that you need for your path at any moment. It's in here. It's in here. Lamed is also connected to the 12th arcanum in tarot, the Hanged Man. So you could see even more how it's really about sacrifice. If we want to move from 12 to 13, the Hanged Man, aka the martyr, to death, aka transformation, we've got to give up whatever it is that we need to give up in order to transform into the next best version of ourselves. That's what the Lamed is about, the Hanged Man. What do you need to sacrifice? What is keeping you in that victimization mode? What is keeping you in that nightmare? Don't just go back to sleep before you remove your hands from your eyes to see the truth. Fully awaken. Fully awaken. Don't just get up, think about your nightmare, and then go back to sleep and fall right back into the nightmare. That's not why we're here. Wake up all the way. Wake up all the way. Remember the bigger picture. From there, you will know true balance. And the answers are in your heart. So let it lead the way. Lamed leads the way. Again, remember that the cards are flipped on the camera. So if you want to look up this Hebrew letter and learn more about its mystical secrets, check out my book. Book number 1, The Royal Path. I talk about the non-manipulated Hebrew letter correlations to each of the cards. But again, just Google Lamed, L-A-M-E-D, the Hebrew letter Lamed, and see what secrets it holds for you. Maybe you want to put it on your altar. Maybe you want to make it your phone background. But again, remember, it's flipped on your screen, so Google it, Lamed, L-A-M-E-D. Whew. All right, you guys, so follow your heart. So simple as that. But you already knew. You already know. You always know all of the answers are within. If what you seek you find not without, you shall never find within. If what you seek you find not within, you shall never find without. As within, so without. As above, so below. All around. It's you. There's only one. It's true. So thank you guys for joining this activation. Let's do this. Whatever is causing the anxiety, let's get to the bottom of it. Let's take action. Let's not go back to sleep. Let's not turn back, look back, keep going deeper into that pain and that suffering. Let's take accountability and do what we have to do to kill that version of ourselves that was allowing this. Because we can't control what's outside of us. So how can we be honest with what's been hurting us? And make choices to shift the way we think, which then shifts the way we speak, which then shifts our behaviors, so that we can close the gates to the bad behavior, close the gates to the negativity, to the suffering, and be born into a new version of ourselves that those gates are closed to that old reality. Be born into a new version of ourselves that only allows for progression, for evolution, for growth. I love you guys. Thanks for being here. I'll see you on Friday for some Shabbat stuff, most likely in our private group Shabbat Crew on Facebook. We also have a private group on Facebook called the Archetypal Alliance, if you want to join that and post more in there if the activations once a week aren't enough for you. So that's a lot of fun. That's been going on for a long time. I love that group. And remember, I'm on YouTube and Instagram, Rebecca Magic. So follow me on there if you have family and friends that aren't on here and you want to get them in the activation portal. Maybe somebody really needs to hear this message right now. Somebody's struggling. Or maybe you know a super powerful star seed or light being, indigo, crystal, whatever you want to call them. Somebody who's awakened, somebody who is aware, somebody who's present, somebody who's powerful in mind, body, spirit. Send this to them, share this with them, get them in the portal. This happens every week. We could do powerful work together when we unite like this. Thank you. See you soon.